Hi everyone, today's video is all about the Canadian Permanent Resident Card, how to apply, how to renew, and what are the fees associated with the application. As well, we're going to touch on some important information that you need to know if you're going to be traveling as a permanent resident. This video is part of a series to simplify information for people who are either planning to come to Canada or are newcomers to Canada. If that sounds like something that you're interested in, hit that subscribe button and let's get started on today's topic. If you've recently been granted permanent residency, congratulations! You're now eligible to obtain your permanent resident card, and that card is going to provide you with a number of benefits. As a permanent resident, and now with your permanent resident card, you now have a lot of the benefits that Canadian citizens have, like healthcare coverage and social benefits. You're going to be able to work and study anywhere in Canada that you like, and you now meet one of the requirements to apply to be a Canadian citizen. Making sure you receive and keep your permanent resident card up to date is important, especially if you're going to be traveling, and we're going to be talking about that a little later in this video. If you received permanent resident status, you don't actually have to apply for the card. The Canadian government will mail one directly to you as long as you provided a valid Canadian address. If not, you will have to submit an application. If you didn't provide a valid address or your card either needs to be updated or replaced, then you do have to apply. So how do we do that? Your first step is to complete the entire application package, and if possible, you want to complete the application on a computer. This will ensure that your answers are both easy to read and that you didn't miss anything. The application will prompt you before you print if you forgot to answer any questions. Here's an example of what the first page of the application looks like. I'll include a link in the description so it's easy for you to find online. Once your application is complete, you will need to pay the fee to process it, and you will be doing this online. I'll include a link so you know where to go. Once you've paid your fee, a receipt will be emailed to you. You'll want to print off that receipt and include it in your application package. Make sure you're extra careful before you submit your application. If you missed any steps, your application will be immediately declined and it will be returned back to you to complete. So make sure you've done all of these steps. Make sure you complete the application checklist. This is going to help you identify any areas that you might have missed. And always answer every single question. You cannot leave any question or field blank. If it doesn't apply to you, write not applicable or NA. Always ensure that your photos meet the requirements. If not, your application will be returned to you. And finally, you must include proof that you paid the fee for the application. In some rare cases, the application might be asking you for original document that you simply cannot provide. If that's the case, you'll need to include a statutory declaration or an affidavit explaining why you can't provide that document. In order to get that, you'll need to see a notary. Once you've completed and reviewed your application, you're now ready to send it for approval by mail, and I'll include the two addresses in the description of this video. Once you've done that, your application can take anywhere from 1 to 2 months before you receive your new permanent resident card. Now that you're a permanent resident, you must be aware of some important information if you're going to be traveling. If you've left the country or you're planning on leaving, in order to re-enter Canada, especially by commercial transportation, you must be able to provide a valid permanent resident card. Without one, you may be denied the ability to board some of those travel methods, like a plane or train, for example. If you're outside of Canada and your permanent resident card is expired, then an alternative would be to apply for a permanent resident travel document. You are not able to apply or renew a permanent resident card unless you are applying while you're inside of Canada. Here is an example of what the application looks like for the permanent resident travel document. I'll include a link in the description so it's easy for you to find online. Here's a summary of a few key points we learned today. If you did not provide a valid Canadian address when you applied to be a permanent resident, or you either need to renew or change information on an existing card, you need to complete an application. And your application must be completed and submitted while you're in Canada. Make sure you don't leave any field blank, and ensure your photo meets the requirements that are located in the checklist. Always ensure that you complete the application checklist and review your documents to make sure you didn't miss anything. Mistakes in your application will cause it to be returned and potentially delayed for approval. If you can't provide a document they're requesting, you will need to provide a statutory declaration or an affidavit, which you can get from a notary. And finally, if you plan on traveling, your card must be valid if you're taking commercial transportation to re-enter the country. If your card expired while you were out of the country, then you'll need to apply for a permanent resident travel document. This wraps up our video on the Canadian Permanent Resident Card. If you have any questions, comment below and I'll include some useful links in the description, where to find information and even find out the status of your application. And don't forget, hit that subscribe and bell button so you don't miss out on any future videos. Thanks for watching.